A new series of the GT2 European Series is about to kick off. Welcome to Paul Ricard. Welcome to the first of two races today. Normally at this point, you say in bright sunshine, warm weather, well, it's a chilly morning, it's blustery, it's a bit overcast, but the grid is set ready for the new format of two 1 hour races rather than 50 minutes as we had in the past. The other element remains though, pit stops, and of course, in the two driver entries, mandatory driver changes. You can go solo if you so desire. The race actually is declared wet, so there's always a threat of rain. We had a bit of rain just after midnight last night, but it's the very untypical Paul Ricard morning as we get set for race one of the new championship season, with Lamborghini taking on Maserati, taking on Mercedes-AMG, taking on KTM. David Addison and Joe Osborne are trackside. It's a great lap this, but the drivers that came here expecting really warm conditions and being pretty hot in the car, they're disappointed.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the damp spots there as they go onto the Mistral Straight. The slightly lighter colour is the drier area, so yeah, I can see why the race directors called it a wet race. I don't think anyone's going to start on wets because it would be the slower tyre, but some of these guys in their first season of racing, it's going to be hard work for them, and maybe that wet tyre would be a safer bet. Yeah, I don't anticipate to see any spray, for example, but the lap times I would expect to be somewhere to 6-7 seconds off the pace. Remember, no tyre ovens either for GT2 cars, so those tyres are starting at ambient temperature, which at the moment is 13.3 degrees air temp.
You can see from the drone there the different configurations and cut-throughs and layouts of Paul Ricard, of which there are so many, with the blue and the red paint, which is there to try and slow down a car. Some drivers even talk about being a bit nauseous with all that swirly paint, and the more laps you do, you kind of become almost seasick. But all eyes focus front for the moment, and on pole position is the Lamborghini Huracan, in as an invitation class car. Bronek Formanek from Lamborghini Super Trofeo at the wheel of the Michenek Motorsport powered by Bugera entry. Bugera famous for great truck racing success, amongst other things. And Bronek Formanek, former Formula Renault racer. Qualifying yesterday, 2 sessions separate for each of the 2 race grids. Number 1, lining up on the other side of the front row, Philippe Pret, who in the end of the session stopped with what turned out to be a gearbox problem. Yeah,
obviously very dominant performance a long way through qualifying, but just missed out at the end to Formanek in that Lamborghini. But yeah, completely missed Q2 with the gearbox issue. Obviously, team have managed to fix it and get the car back out there. But is that going to be a worry for him? No chance to do an install lap before this, straight into the race, and the gearbox change is a rather large component just to hope works on merit and will.
Yeah, Philippe Pret, last year's AM champion, AM pole as well. And just to make the point that the drivers, if there are 2 of them, in the pole position car get a point for pole. So 2 have gone to across them, Bronek Formanek and Stefan Rossina, a point each. And Philippe Pret gets the point in AM for pole position. No GT2 grid would be complete without a quirky KTM, and there with that sort of up and forward front bodywork. Thomas Anderson starts in number 80, 4th on the grid that car will be. And we watched the other driver, Simon Birch, in Q2 yesterday, the second driver, being really good through the first sector, where it's twiddly and fiddly and there are some tight corners. But then the KTM on the Mistral Straight sort of ran out of puff.
Exactly that, and it 3 sectors here around Paul Ricard, 1 and 3 relatively similar into tight and twisty technical, but sector 2 dominated by the Mistral Straight. So we do see an ebb and flow of lap time from these cars, and the KTM is very much at one end of the spectrum, how it generates that lap time.
Grid being cleared then, as the cars are set to be released very shortly. It's going to be a rolling start, of course, so they don't stop on the grid at the end of the formation lap. They go straight into the race. And it is, as we have been looking at, Bronek Formanek on pole position. Now, a car to watch at the very back is number 8, which is Anik Patel, not the slowest qualifier, but penultimate on the grid. First race, he's got a nice collection of road cars to play with. He's got a Maserati race car. He's got a demon quick co-driver in Eddie Cheever. Now, that car, inevitably, given the lack of racing experience of Anik Patel, is going to lose time in the first stint. But you put Cheever in as quick as you can, and then like the blue touch paper, he's going to be a real flyer.
Yep, so after 25 minutes into the race, they'll be able to stop and get Eddie Cheever in. And Eddie was racing last night in GT World Challenge, so plenty of track time this weekend. We'll need to quickly adjust that Maserati as he leaves pit lane. He's straight into the race, so quite a envious task that to be able to get straight on it.
And he did the bulk of his racing in the 6-hour GT race last night early, as in. He then had lots of time to sort of get that out of the system and get ready for GT2. Let's look at the grid. Bronek Formanek starts on pole position in the Lamborghini, with Philippe Pret lining up with him at the front of the grid. Third on the grid is where you find Alberto De Martin in the NM Racing Team Mercedes, and then Thomas Anderson lining up with him for fourth. Fifth on the grid, Laura Kramer, and sixth is where you find Andres Rocos, with seventh Christophe Bourret and Oliver Freimuth's Lamborghini Huracan, also out of Super Trofeo, starting eighth. Ninth on the grid is Roberto Pampanini. He'll be a man to watch as well. That car, a winner last year in Barcelona. Thomas Miniberger, the man behind RTR Projects, is next, ahead of Anik Patel, and newcomer to GT2, Patrick Charlet, will complete the grid in the TFT Racing, very distinctive bright yellow Maserati. We were saying in qualifying yesterday that GT2 is a bit of a slow burn, but what's always encouraging is the number of new faces that come and either dip in for a race or a season. Some come and go, some stay. It's just a shame that we can't build all of them together, because there are plenty of other GT2 cars around now. It's been going for, what, 4 or 5 seasons now. You've got Audi that built a car, Porsche likewise. So there are cars around. It's just persuading everybody to come out all at the same time.
Yeah, and it's difficult to organise a new series, and we've seen it before with GT4. To get it off the ground is the hard bit, and then it suddenly gets critical mass, and suddenly the grid just explodes. So you look at the formula for GT2 in terms of it being high power, low grip, slightly lower running cost than GT3. There's definitely a place for it in the food chain.
Yeah.
We just need everyone in at the same point, like you said, and maybe another couple of manufacturers looking at it and coming in there, and that then just opens up even more opportunity to bring more drivers onto the grid.
And if you've got a dozen or so thinking, well, you know, I'd commit if there were more cars. Well, if you all commit at the same time, you have got more cars, and then that critical mass begins. But right now, it is going to be a competitive race for sure. And, of course, you've got the 2 classes, so 2 races within one. Bronek Formanek starting on pole position. Experienced driver, Philippe Pret likewise. Philippe, a double Ferrari champion in Asia-Pacific series. And then you've got Anthony De Martin, who is new to the GT2 field, an experienced Iberian GT racer. Thomas Anderson back for another season. Laura Kramer to KTM. Laura has been racing for many seasons. And then the first of the newcomers, or sorry, the next of the newcomers, which is Andre Rocos in the RTR Projects Mercedes, one to watch as well. Cars making their way through Scene. All the support races here run the chicane on the Mistral Straight, but even so, they're still arriving at Scene pretty quickly.
Yeah, still up to 250 kilometres an hour in the speed trap. So, yeah, even without the chicane, you're doing 280. So to only have 30, 40k delta is pretty impressive, and shows the power of these cars. Nearly 700 horsepower in these cars, so they're not slow. Even with that chicane in their way, they are still seriously fast cars.
And they'll start to get themselves in that 2x2 formation shortly, ready for the rolling start. So Bronek Formanek then, the man on pole position. Bronislav Formanek, to give him his full title, former radical racer, had a spell in Formula Renault, then switched to Lamborghini Super Trofeo. And interesting that he's decided to switch from that to GT2 this year. Stefan Rossina will take over the car, and he's 6 times a winner in Pro-Am in this championship. He is a Porsche Super Cup racer, FIA GT1 World Championship racer, disappeared from racing for a time to go and build up his business, and then was tempted back in GT2 racing and has kick-started his career. It gives us an opportunity to mention that he is, and you can't get to say this very often about people, twice a Skoda Octavia Cup champion.
Your knowledge never fails to amaze me, David. I have to say, I don't remember watching that championship in in-depth detail.
Stefan Rossina then will do stint 2 in this race, but he'll be the start driver in the second race today. Philippe Pret, soloist. So like last year, he absolutely maximises the track time. By the end of the day, he'll know he's been to Paul Ricard.
He really will, and it does give a positive that you get more experience, but then there will be a fatigue element in that too.
So up they come from the Virage Dupont, that very tight right. The race director set with the command to switch the lights to green if he's happy with the formation of the start, and to get things underway on Sunday at Paul Ricard. The GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli, is go. The lights go to green. Good start by Pret. Is it enough to outdrag Formanek? The answer is no. Good start by the Mercedes in the background of Alberto De Martin as they go down now towards turn 1. Thomas Anderson in the red-nosed KTM trying to get around the outside, and big drama, because that is the Maserati of Anik Patel that has charged the barrier with some force. Now, it might have been that there was contact that fired him off, because the other Maserati of Patrick Charlet is rather badly delayed. That was a big impact into the wall as the leaders go side by side. And down towards turn 3, it is going to be Bronek Formanek in the lead.
Yeah, they're having to tiptoe there because of these damp conditions. Look at that. There's not really a dry line. Safety car called not surprised with that one nevertheless, but these guys now need to slow down. The silver Mercedes there just needs to be careful they didn't overtake after the yellow, and actually even the gold Maserati of Pampanini there still overtaking, so some of these drivers not getting the message maybe at the same time. And I also thought Pampanini was a bit too central at the start there. He really jutted out into the middle of the track, so the race director may revisit that. But yeah, when the safety car is called as a driver, you're hyper focused on being on the front foot, and sometimes it's easy to miss the flag signals or even the call over the radio. The teams will be advising their drivers if they've overtaken after that to give the position back, and that can sometimes stop you getting a penalty rather than just staying in front carte blanche.
So the safety car will scoop them up at the end of this lap. For now, Bronick Formanek, as the race leader, has to sort of act as the virtual safety car, if you like, until they get to the official car. Through the chicane they go. I think everyone now has seen the boards and the flags and slows right down. The incident will be attended to. It's obviously a driver, first of all, to make sure he's okay. No doubt somewhat winded will be Anik Patel. Then you've got to get the car out of the way and then assess whether the barrier is damaged as well. And, of course, that part of the racetrack, concrete walls rather than tyre walls. We talk about all the runoff at Paul Ricard. Unfortunately, Anik Patel managed to have a drama at the one part of the circuit where there is limited runoff, and that would have done quite a bit of damage, I fear, to that Maserati. Probably enough to render it out of race 2, which is a real shame. So his first race did not last very long. The start is under investigation, although in fairness these days that's pretty normal.
Yeah, we see that a lot, don't we? But there's definitely a couple of things. Anik Patel there looking on at that quite heavily damaged front right corner of that Maserati, but he's out the car, stood up and unhappy. He'll still go to the medical centre for the sort of normal procedural checks and stuff, but great to see Anik out the car. But Eddie Chiva will be gutted. I think you're right. I think that car's going to struggle to be ready for the race this afternoon, where they were on pole position, of course. After
Eddie Chiva's good efforts yesterday, just looking to see if there are any witness marks on Patrick Charlet's Maserati, whether or not those two touched, or it could have been that, you know, heavy braking and an inexperienced driver just caused a slight error, or indeed a damp patch under braking.
Yeah, it's just the angle it went round. I would go with your first guess of what happened, that there must have been contact. It whipped around so quickly and before the brake zone as well. So yeah, at the start there's the highest risk, of course. That's why we see the medical car following the pack round for the first lap, because the risk of an incident is so much higher, and yeah, the cars are jostling for position. You check your mirror as a driver and you think it's clear, and there might have just been a car sat in the blind spot, and you just can turn yourself around the front of that. So let's see. So we're going to see the safety car actually staying to the left-hand side down pit straight, just trying to give the marshals as much space as possible to stay over there and get on with the work that they've got to do. And again, I think you're right with your assessment. With it being a concrete wall, I'll be surprised if there's any damage that they need to fix to the circuit. It's just a simple removal of the car.
And once the car is retrieved to the paddock, we're not expecting it's going to be good for race 2. Part of it, of course, will have to be assessed by the team, partly by the scrutineers as well. And you know what scrutineers are like. They can find all sorts of things if they try hard enough.
Yeah, they're real sticklers for regulations, which is
absolutely
annoying, isn't it? I hate when people stick to the rules like that. But yeah, the problem with the car there, with a mid-engine car, the front of it, there's not a huge amount of components, but the chassis legs stick forward from the front bulkhead, and they're not designed to take any impact laterally. So when you have that sort of glancing blow, it twists those chassis legs, and basically as soon as they're bent, you can't hang any of the bodywork off them, and before you know it, the car needs to go back to the workshop. Those chassis legs will literally get cut off and then re-welded on a jig to make sure they're true and straight. So yeah, that's not a nice impact to see on a mid-engine car.
Right, so while we're behind the safety car, domestic message time, very quickly, for the benefit of my nephew that is watching this and wants to know whereabouts in France we are. We're in the south of France, Wilbur, and we're about 2 hours away from Nice, and it's not as warm and sunny as we wanted it to be, so it's not quite as glamorous as Paul Ricard often is, but we are going to go racing fairly shortly, I'm sure, because the car will be swiftly moved. Well, another good thing about this circuit is that you can, with all the different access roads and cut-throughs, remove an incident very, very quickly, and it won't take long, I think, to get things back underway. This gives the drivers a chance, I guess, to sort of focus a little bit on the circuit, work out where the damp patches are without the pressure of having to find them in race conditions. And so when we do go back racing, they've got a little bit more track knowledge and a bit more confidence, because we are largely dealing with businessman racers here. It's unfair in a sense to call them AMs, but you know these aren't paid pro drivers. They might be experienced, they might be really quick, but their focus is on running a business and doing this at weekends.
Yeah, so naturally they don't get the track time, thus the experience to sample this. And when you do lots of miles, you get more of these conditions and you feel a bit more confident how to approach it. You can actually see the Mercedes of De Martin, that silver car, in 5th place. He was really aggressive on the brakes, and that's such a good way of generating temperature, not just in the brakes, but then into the tyre. So a few of the drivers will be relatively thankful for this early safety car period, because it will just allow those tyre temps to come up more naturally, more organic, and give them the chance to work out where the damp patch is. And you've got to be on the fly with your thought process as a racing driver. If there's a damp patch sat on the apex of a corner, you need to work out, is it quicker for me to avoid the damp patch running wide, or am I still better to attack the damp patch and take the racing line? And sometimes you can feel it under safety car and you go, okay, actually I'm gonna try this lap, and next lap I'll try the opposite, and then you make your decision on what to do, and you tend to stick with that for quite a few laps and get into the rhythm that way.
So all of this, of course, takes the drivers closer to the pit stop window. Now, if you've got your slower driver in first, in a sense, that's good for your race result. If you've got your quicker driver in first, it's rather bad news. And looking at the double driver entries, this, I would offer you, is the race that is, in the main, started by the lower graded driver. Your gun is going to do stint 2 and the start of the second race. So actually, this is helping us in the long term for the race. It's keeping the cars now nicely bunched together.
Yeah, so we're going to see a lot of changes after the pit stop, with faster drivers being towards the back of the field, and safety cars still staying out, just trying to see where we're at with the clear up of that Maserati number 8 of Anik Patel. But yeah, you can see cars now starting to weave left to right. They're still not happy with their tyre temp. We saw yesterday, didn't we, in the GT World Challenge race, the pickup being the biggest problem for drivers. Paul Ricard has always done an amazing job of cleaning the track every night, but you look at it now, it looks spotless as you see the number 8 car on the flatbed. So I think this has a good chance of being green by the end of this lap.
Barrier looks okay too. Safety car will indeed be in at the end of this lap, so we are set to go racing. And when we do, well, it's an hour race this year rather than 50 minutes. We are almost at the end of the first 10. I think by the end of this lap, because at the moment, the lap times that the cars are doing are certainly approaching 4 minutes. We're going to be into the sort of next set of 10-minute stanzas, if you like. So we're getting a little nearer to that pit stop window. 25 to 35 minutes is the window. 148 seconds is the mandatory time, whether you're on your own or you have a co-driver. Yeah, we're going to have another 3 minutes or so before we go racing, although the pace of the safety car now can quicken. If race control have made that call as they have, that it can peel in this time, then that means the incident is sorted. They don't go past that place again behind the safety car. Now it can quicken its pace. Tyres up to temperature, tyres up to pressure. So this lap, up to the green flag, should be a quicker one. Yeah,
definitely. And it's a quick safety car, isn't it? New to us this year, the Maserati MC20, joining as a partner to the whole of SRO GT World Challenge. It's a very pretty car, and interestingly, it's obviously the road car sibling of the car that's currently in second place of Pret. So it's nice to be able to see Maserati on track with a road car and their race version. And yeah, they've done really well. They were an early adopter to GT2 as well, weren't they, Maserati? So they're starting to get the benefits of that.
Yeah, we've lost a race car, but we've gained a road car in a sense, or the safety car, to help sort out the incident. Through they turn then, out of Senior, the safety car, the lights out. That's the indication that it will peel in at the end of the lap. It quickens its pace, and then Bronek Formanak is going to bring the field round ready for the resumption of the race. There is Philippe Pret, who has a bit of a call to make now. Does he think about an overall win, which is feasible, or does he just go after an AM victory and points in the championship?
Be the first one. There's no way that he's not going to take a move on Formanek if he can take it. Some big gaps in the field, so safety car might actually slow them back down here, I think, under instruction of the race control, just to try and bunch them up a bit more, because there's some big gaps from Pampanini there. I'm surprised to see De Martin's not there, but I actually can't see De Martin's car. So is that actually potentially an issue further back? But we're getting ready for the restart as they come round the last corner. Formanek would choose when to accelerate. He's in charge of that.
So Formanek in the Lamborghini comes out of the Virage du Pont, then out of turn 15. The green flag flutters. We are back racing then. And Over the timing line goes Bronek Formanek, being chased by Philippe Pret. So it is Lamborghini from Maserati from KTM third of Thomas Anderson, who has a rather cheeky look to the inside line. Roberto Pampanini is fourth. He's benefited off that brief amount of racing on the first lap by gaining a few spots off the grid. And behind him is Laura Kreimer. The one that's dropped back on the restart is the De Martin Mercedes, as Philippe Pret finds a rather wayward line coming out of turn 2, and there Laura Kreimer has a big dive, gets past 1, tries to get past 2 under braking for turn 3. I don't think she's going to clear Thomas Anderson. Let's have a look as the drone chases after the top 2 down towards turns 4 and 5 now. It is still Formanek ahead of Pret, and for third, which of the KTMs are we going to see as the leaders turn their way now out of turn 6? It's still Anderson third, but a good move by Laura Kreimer up into 4th place.
Yeah, sent it down the inside. You can still see the damp patches onto the Mistral straight. Philippe Pret's moment out of turn 2, that would have woken him up. He actually had the speed to get a move done on Formanek, but that slide would have meant the traction control kicked in. He had to lift out the throttle, and he did well to save it, but it stopped him getting on the front foot. As we see these 2 KTMs battling into the back straight chicane, Laura Kreimer really on the front foot, nice and aggressive, and Pampanini there's just almost ready to sweep up any issue between those 2 KTMs.
And we know that Pampanini is an experienced driver and has a really quick co-driver in Mauro Calamia. So here they come up towards senior. It is Bronek Formanek in the lead in the Lamborghini, then in second place, getting a little bit nearer Philippe Pret. The KTMs on this part of the circuit, bit breathless, as we said, pre-race, and therefore drop into the clutches of Pampanini. But Philippe Pret is on his toes, isn't he, having a look on the inside at Le Beausset. Now, you've got 2 experienced drivers here. Both know their cars very well indeed. They've not raced against each other necessarily before. And as they come now up from the right of Le Beausset on towards Scarlabon, if anything, through these twiddly bits, the KTMs are catching back up again, aren't they?
Yeah, it's becoming a 5-car battle for the lead, isn't it? Remember how close it was in qualifying between Formanek and Pret, only 0.2 of a second between their fastest lap. So I'm not surprised to see them staying close. I am surprised to see the KTMs staying with maybe these slightly damp conditions, favouring that very stiff chassis, the carbon fibre tub in the KTM, seeming to like these conditions. So we have got a 5-car battle for the lead.
Over the timing line they come then. End of our first proper racing lap, and it is Bronek Formanek in the lead, as there Pampanini look in the gold Maserati comes up to have a go at the KTM of Laura Kreimer, who jumped him on the restart, but Pampanini unable to find a way back. That's interesting that in a straight line there, the Maserati didn't have the grunt, so maybe we're being a bit unfair to the KTMs in saying they ran out of puff.
Yeah, and in these conditions, maybe the slight less of power the KTM does have, it isn't so much of an issue because you can't get that power through the tyres into the tarmac. But yeah, they definitely didn't look slow on the pitch straight, and they were staying with Pret in front of them as well.
Fastest lap to the Mercedes of Christophe Bure. He's down in 8th place, as the top 5 are really as one. As they came across the stripe, it was 1.8 seconds covering 5 cars. And Formanek is not really escaping from Pret in the way that he would like to. Pret able to pretty much go with him. Now on this part of the circuit, they are dropping 3rd, 4th, 5th, because Thomas Anderson has to defend from Laura Kreimer, who in turn is having to defend from Roberto Pampanini, and the KTMs go side by side. Up the inside line goes Kreimer. So Laura Kreimer on the inside line goes through up into 3rd place, and there is a drive-through being given to Pampanini for a start procedure infringement. So there, the gold and black Maserati running in 5th place gets a drive-through penalty for something that it did wrong within that start procedure.
Yeah, that's what I said at the start. I thought he just popped to the middle. They didn't stay in his row on the inside coming into turn 1, and it's almost worse because the car is chrome gold. It really stuck out and just looked like a sore thumb there. So that is painful. That's going to cost him over 40 seconds driving through the pit lane, and yeah, that's going to be hard to recover later on in this race.
Yeah, that's when they need the safety car to bunch them all up afterwards. Now, Formanek getting away just a little bit, and Pret is coming under attack from Laura Kreimer, who's had a really good lap, having gained 3rd place. There is the now penalised Pampanini, and he could do with getting that out of the way sooner rather than later before the gaps really open up.
Yeah, definitely needs to get in, get it served, and get gone. Got 3 laps to serve it, but he's doing it on the first of those 3, staying to the right, peeling to pit lane. You'll see him in the background shooting through, getting down to 50 kilometres an hour. That's the hard bit here as well. It's a very quick pit entry. You can see that penalty flashing on the gantry. Yeah. He's already in. He's served it very quickly and efficiently.
So let's see how much time that's going to hemorrhage for Pampanini. The good news, in a sense, is that the quicker driver of the two, Mauro Calamia, is yet to go. There, the walk of shame, this, down the pit lane, everybody sort of staring, you've got a penalty. And Roberto Pampanini pretends not to look at anybody as the leaders have closed right up once again. Philippe Pret, really, really good past the pits and through turns 1 and 2 and thinking about maybe making a move on the inside line down at turn 3. There is just about a gap. He's up the curb, he's level, he's alongside. It's the outside for the next corner of 4. It's the inside for 5. The road should come to Philippe Pret. The reigning AM champion goes through, goes wide, goes off. Back up the inside goes Formanek. And Kreimer gets second. So 1 up and 2 back, I'm afraid, for Philippe Pret. On paper, that was a really good move. It just didn't pay out for him.
Yeah, you could see as he was on the inside line going into that tight right-hander at 5, a lot of dust getting kicked up. He wouldn't have seen that, and I just think that probably coated the tyres in a substandard grip level in there. So when he's hit the brakes, it's not stopped as quickly as he was hoping or needed, and he's gone in deep, and he's lost 1 position after trying to take the lead.
So through they come out of the chicane, and this is lap number 6. We are, as I say, edging towards the pit window. There you can see Roberto Pampanini's Maserati in the middle, rather than being slotted in behind the cars in front. So that's what he did wrong against the race director instruction, was not flush to the car ahead. He was in the middle of the road and therefore didn't stay in his requisite grid slot. That's the drive-through penalty.
Just to give a metric on how tricky it is out there, the fastest lap at the moment, 9 seconds off pole position in qualifying.
Wow.
So, yes, it's going to be slow in the race. You haven't got new tyres, you've got more fuel on board, but I'd expect that delta to be more like 2.5 seconds. But the damp patches out there are making it tricky for these drivers. And someone on the move, 2 purple sectors towards the back of the grid. Borja there is absolutely on it in the Mercedes, so that car's coming alive.
Yeah, he did have the fastest lap of the race earlier on, but that's been stolen now by Laura Krajmer there, who is hustling on to now try and get the lead of the race. So Bronek Formanek just not getting away. He may have been quickest, but he's not escaping. Getting a replay here of the cars making their way over the timing line. Through they go, and Bronek Formanek race leader 0.8 of a second up then as the field goes through. Fastest lap of the race back to Christophe Bure, 2:11.3. So cars are getting lighter, tyres are getting warmer, and perhaps crucially, drivers are getting more confident.
Yep, the damp patch is drying up, but did you see the exit curb? A couple of the KTMs at the front there just kicking up water. It always sits in the serration of the curb for a lot longer, so you might think it's dry and then you run up to it and suddenly it's like you're driving through a puddle, and the car can get very loose. It obviously cools the tyres slightly as well, so drivers need to be careful. Different conditions on and off track here at Paul Ricard so far.
One other thing to factor in for the second race is that if you are in the top 3 in your class, you carry extra time for race 2 pit stop. Philippe Pret now on the attack as he tries to get himself not only through the replay of how he got the race lead briefly, so coming out of 4 into 5, through on the inside line, but just too much speed.
Yeah, you could just see that dust kicking up as he came wide there. And I just think that's probably hurt him trying to get this car stopped. Luckily, all the runoff here at Ricard means there's no major penalty to pay apart from dropping down to 3rd place.
So Philippe Pret, one slight error and really good opportunistic move by Laura Krajmer. Back up on the inside. There she is in 2nd place. Pret third. Thomas Anderson now fancying his chances of gaining ground in the other KTM. And in 5th place now after the drive-through for Pampanini, it is the Mercedes in the hands of Alberto De Martin, then Christophe Bure, currently the quickest man in the race. 7th is Oliver Freimer, 8th is Thomas Miniberger, 9th is Andre Rocos, and then 10th after the drive-through is Roberto Pampanini, and that was just under 40 seconds, that drive-through time. So a big loss relative to those that he was battling with.
Yeah, the 2 Mercedes that are just coming to shot now seem to be catching Anderson in that KTM and Pret in the Maserati. Pret seems to have maybe lost his rhythm a bit and has dropped off the lead too, hasn't he? Still leading his class, so he'll still be happy with that. But considering he was going for the race lead less than 2 laps ago, I'm surprised he's not being able to catch back up and mount another attack.
Over the line they go. Formanek to Krajmer then, 0.7 of a second. Laura Krajmer has just done the best lap of the race, a 2:10.245, taking another 10th out of Formanek as we are round about 5 minutes or so away from the pit window. So, of course, the 2 leading cars get a co-driver. Laura Krajmer is going to hand the KTM to Matto Hommel, a very quick touring car racer, and the car that she's chasing, Bronek Formanek, to give way to Stefan Rossini, very quick GT racer. So that's going to be a really good, interesting fight for the second part of the race.
Yeah, it just completely changes the dynamic, doesn't it? You get different driver in, different capabilities, different speed, even different wants and desires from the car. So that's what I love about GT racing multi-driver one. It's always 2 races for the price of 1. And as soon as that pit window opens, and let's not forget the pit window is a bit of spice in itself. Obviously many penalties. There's so many rules and regulations, how many people can touch the car, when they can touch the car, how it's released. It's very easy to do. And talking of penalties, we're starting to get some track limit warnings coming through. It is a big thing of Paul Ricard. Very tempting as a driver just to let the cars run wide on exit. But the rule is you have to have 1 tyre in contact with the circuit at any one time.
Oliver Freimuth there going through 7th place, chasing after the Alberto Di Martin and Christophe Bure Mercedes battle. There are the race leaders going through. Formanek still 7/10 up on Kramer. Then Thomas Anderson goes through. 24 Oliver Freimuth next in the queue as they accelerate now on towards Le Beausset through that long right-hander. So there is the lead battle. Philippe Pret still 3rd, Thomas Anderson still there in 4th place, and Alberto Di Martin heading the Mercedes fight from Christophe Bure next up. We're getting nearer and nearer to that window. In Philippe Pret's case, as a soloist, when best to stop? Is it when the window opens and get it out of the way, or is it on the instruction of the team when the pit lane's a bit quieter?
Depending on the car, because they could change the tyre pressure. If everything's A-OK, I would say going long, going as far as you can, in case there's a chance of a full course yellow. And so your pit stop would obviously feel shorter relative to people that stopped under green. So that would be my strategy, is going more towards the end of the window when there's 25 minutes remaining of the race.
Let's see whether the teams concur. Then Bronek Formanek has now done the fastest lap of the race leader, as he tries to build a gap over Lara Kramer. So 2:09, 8:10 was the lap, and he's now over a second ahead. But it's taken quite a long time actually for Formanek to build even that sort of a gap.
Yeah, we're still finding a second a lap at the moment, and that'll be a mixture of drivers' confidence, but also the track still coming towards them. And as a driver, it's quite hard because you'll have a lap timer in the car with a live delta, which is telling you if you're up or down on the best lap that car's done. And sometimes you'll be finding half a second at one corner as it dries up, but then you start to overdrive others and lose time. So it's a moving set of goalposts for these drivers in these conditions. But yeah, Graham has done a really strong job here, considering she started off the front row. She really looks like she should have been starting on that front row from qualifying. So maybe going forward, she'll be concentrating on qualifying a bit more to start at the front. And she could be leading this race if she had started a bit nearer the sharp end.
Yeah, she was only 5th on the grid, wasn't she, in the 3rd row, so it has been a good fight. Christophe Bure, even though he's not part of that leading gaggle, is trying to be, and he's still doing absolute bests in the sectors, conscious perhaps that he's coming towards the end of his stint. So Bronek Formanek, quickest man on the racetrack, goes through, but we're having absolute bests from the Mercedes in both sectors 1 and 2. They're trying to play catch-up. They've lost ground early on, but are now rebuilding the race. And what news of Roberto Pampanini? Well, he's still mired down in 9th place. He has got himself ahead of Andre Rocoche's Mercedes AMG, but as far as Pampanini is concerned, he's got 20 seconds really to make up before he can attack Thomas Miniberger. I would suspect he'll be in very early to give Calamia as much time in that car as possible.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Bore doing a purple sector 1, like you said, 2nd in class as well, 2 classes in GT2. You've got your Pro-Am green and your bronze class red cars there on the ident on the left-hand side of your screen. So everyone is very competitive, but it's great to have 2 different classes. And we've got to remember that towards the end of the race, there's 2 sets of podiums as well to talk about there.
Another new fastest lap of the race for Bronek Formanek, 2 minutes 9.5, bettered by Christophe Bure, 2 minutes 9.4. So Christophe Bure in number 53 there, the red Mercedes goes through. That is the car, even though it's 6th, that is consistently the fastest in the race. He's a little bit stuck behind Alberto Di Martin in the NM Racing Team entry, for which the NM, Neil Montserrat, will take over for the 2nd stint. It's a team we're familiar with from GT2, but mainly GT4, where they've had a lot of success for many, many years. And come the end of this lap, the pit window will be open. So it's going to be interesting at the end of this 10th tour to see who bails for the pit lane, who gets the stop done early.
Yeah, and Montserrat obviously getting upgraded last night, driver grading from bronze to silver, so that car was entered as a bronze car. Montserrat was actually put down to bronze before the weekend and then taken back up. So yeah, sorry, up to the AM class. So yeah, that car is now in Pro-Am, just based on Montserrat's performance yesterday in qualifying.
Yeah, he's somebody that used to race in European single-seaters quite a long time ago. Neil Montserrat got as far as Formula Renault 3.5, so you know he was no slouch, was he?
Yeah, that's a super competitive, almost modern day F2 now. So to race at that level, and the pit window now open. So yeah, we've got the ability for all cars to bail to the pit lane, but those Pro-Am cars more likely to stop and get their fastest second driver in.
So there's the Mercedes fight, as now the start driver Alberto De Martin, who's been a regular in French GT4 racing, so you know Paul Ricard, he goes by, fending off the challenge still of Christophe Bure with that fastest lap of the race to his name. Behind them is Oliver Freimuth, and as you can see from the graphic, the pit window is open, so expect a wave of cars to head for pit lane this time around. We've still got 34.5 minutes of the race to go. Bit more track time given to the drivers this year. In comes the leader, in comes second, and Philippe Pret stays out. Doesn't matter quite so much for him when he pits, so he will inherit the race lead. And now he's got to do an absolute series of qualifying laps while the road is clear ahead of him. The Mercedes are staying out as well. Thomas Anderson has pitted, so Pret will lead from De Martin, from Bure. So a new order in the top three. And there, look, down the pit lane, you see Formanet, Krahammer, Thomas Anderson there stops to relay Simon Birch.
Yeah, and a dump churner fuel ready as well. The slightly longer race this year, 60 minutes versus 50. These cars with the extra power they've got over GT3 and GT4, they naturally burn more fuel. So some teams needing to put 25 litres of fuel in the pit stop to get the car through the hour.
Just waiting to see whether Roberto Pampanini comes into the pit lane. He's on his way up towards the end of the third sector as number one. Philippe Pret then goes through, and in fact Pampanini bucks the trend and stays out. So having lost time early on and expecting the quicker co-driver to take over, he has stayed out for another lap. Christophe Bure, by the way, last time still did another fastest lap of the race, as there Stefan Rossina scurries around the sides of the Michenek Motorsport Lamborghini. New car for him in this type of racing, at least, but he did race Lamborghinis a long time ago in the FIA GT1 World Championship. There, coming out of the chicane, is number one, Philippe Pret then. So this is the race leader on the road. He's only 2.6 seconds ahead of Alberto De Martin, so it's not a massive gap between them. And in the sectors on this lap, in fact, the Mercedes fractionally the faster within sector 1, up to the end of sector 2, and De Martin is quicker there as well. So number 115, okay, it is a car that is running in Pro-Am rather than Am, but it is gaining on the Am leader.
Yeah, and again, just what we see is an ebb and flow of a race. Maybe the tyre pressures coming up a bit higher now for De Martin. Maybe they start them low. You can see Formanek in the background there, already got a woolly hat on. That really shows you how chilly it is here at Paul Ricard. They're just waiting for the minimum pit stop time, 146 seconds. So that's the in to out time. Some of the teams will use an old-fashioned stopwatch. There's a GPS system that a few manufacturers make as well, so you can record it. Looks like De Martin was coming for the pit lane there, which could open up the track for this red Mercedes Abora, and he could get some fast laps in. And yeah, you can see even more cars bailing for the pit lane, but it looks like the KTMs are going to jump that Lamborghini in the pits, and they have to release it just behind the KTM there, and it slots in between.
Right, so Matto Homola then takes over the notional race lead, best of the pit stoppers, ahead of the Lamborghini. Now, all of that presupposes that the pit stop times are the right side of the regulation, 148 seconds. We'll check on that in a moment. As on track then is Matto Homola, and then in second spot now, just a fractionally slower pit stop for the Lamborghini. Ronit Formanek gives way to Stefan Rossina.
Yeah, I mean, Homola's pit stop was bang on 148 seconds, so they have absolutely nailed it, and they have done a really good job there. So they couldn't have been a tenth faster without attracting a penalty, and you can see Rossina swinging out wide, trying to get a run on that KTM. Let's see the speed difference as they get through this next left-hander onto the Mistral straight, as we see the 28 Maserati there, one of the most striking liveries. Again, just a tyre pressure adjustment from the mechanic, nothing to worry about. Quite a standard procedure in the pit stops for these races.
Christophe Bure still pounding along with the Mercedes in the sectors, as now here you can see Stefan Rossina trying to get the lead of the race back. He thinks about the inside line, the car almost quivering under braking. Wasn't able to do a full send up the inside there. Matto Homola in the KTM twitching its way out of the chicane. So here you've got two drivers thrown into the car, thrown into the race, and thrown into a lead battle.
Yeah, straight into it, isn't it? No warm-up. They haven't had any laps this morning. First lap you do is a race lap, and it looks like Rossina's down the inside into Scene, side by side, 200, 220 kilometers an hour, still side by side, but this will go to Rossina now into Le Bousset, 2 rights for the price of 1, and the job is done. Great move, nice and clean.
Tell that the Lamborghini was pushing, because on this outlap, absolute best in the middle sector going the way of a curb hopping Stefan Rossina. Round the outside comes Mato Homola, using the KTM's agility through the corners against the grunt of the Lamborghini in a straight line. Homola gets back up front and just squeezes through. Great racing between these two. These are the pros, if you like, in Pro-Am cars. And you can understand why Mato Homola is in demand to drive a KTM, can't you? Because he's taken that by the scruff of the neck. He's got it back into the race lead. But he's going to have to work hard for half an hour, really, now to try to fend off that Lamborghini. Puff of smoke out of the back of the KTM. Up towards the timing line they come. They're going to be side by side. And look, Rossina, with two wheels over the white line, has got the inside heading down towards turn one. But that KTM is still really strong in a straight line. Last of the late breakers. Who is the braver? Rossina is the answer. The leader is going to be Stefan Rossina, that Lamborghini back ahead of Mato Homola's KTM.
Yeah, and remember, that's the first time these drivers have seen each of these corners on that lap, so they're having to really work hard, and that's maybe why Rossina ran wide out of T11 Le Bousset, just less grip than he was anticipating, and great driving from Homola in the KTM there, just to kind of strike while the iron was hot and get the move done. I think this is a battle that could rage on for the remaining 29 minutes and 5 seconds of this race.
No, we've also had number 7 Maserati in. Mauro Calamia has taken that car over, and here is 7 being released. Lots and lots of tar smoke, leaves 11s on the ground. That's a man who's a bit cross.
Yeah, good way to get some rear tyre temp as well.
Oh,
that's what I've been telling the team. But yeah, cars always turn the traction control off when the pit limiter is on. One for that reason, and it really does help just boost the tyre temp. So as you leave pit lane, you just feel a bit more confident from the rear axle.
Race leaders coming out of the chicane, and Mato Homola then now having to try to work out where, if possible, he can have a go back at the leading Lamborghini. Now, yet to stop there is number 1, Philippe Pret. So he leads on the road. He's leading Am from Christophe Bure. The gap, and there it is, was 2.3 seconds, but Christophe Bure quicker by about half a second in the first sector of the lap, and fractionally quicker in the second as well. So the gap is coming down between those two right now.
Yeah, they could squeeze another lap after this, but I don't think they'll take the risk just in case there was a safety car or an issue. So I expect both to bail for the pit lane after this next right-hander. Let's see. Like I said, they could squeeze another lap, and it looks like Pret both going to go for another lap. Or has Pret actually come for a late call in there?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think he would have been clear. You can't cross the solid white line there. We couldn't see from that angle, but it must have been pretty tight. And it may have been a bit of a late call from the team on that regard.
Now, another driver in a KTM hustling on, Simon Birch, doing absolute bests in Sector 1. So there's quite a lot to shake out to this second stint. 27.5 minutes are on the clock, as down the pit road now comes Philippe Pret. So Christophe Bure becomes the race leader, but he will lose the lead, obviously, because that's the car that will inherit it. It is now Stefan Rossina at the wheel. Now, at the moment, Rossina is a lap down, so that shows you what a pit stop makes. 148 seconds is effectively a lap, and so there's no way Bure is going to keep that race lead, given that he was quite a chunk behind before the pit stops began. Others cycling through. Oliver Freimut is in, Thomas Miniberger is in. And right now, a little bit like we saw in the opening stint when it was Formanek at the wheel of number 11 Lamborghini. Yeah, it leads, but it's not storming off into the distance.
No, definitely not. And yeah, so you lose a lap and 16 seconds, which is about the start line to the exit of turn 2. So that's where I expect that red Mercedes to slot in, is one lap behind and then almost the pit straight and a bit behind this lead Lamborghini that seems to be pulling away from the KTM behind.
Slowly but surely, yeah. Fastest lap of the race to Stefan Rossina, a sideways Stefan Rossina there, so stamping his right foot on the pedal, and he's about to try to negotiate Christophe Bure. So Christophe coming to the end of his stint, Stefan Rossina pretty fresh into his. Behind him is Mato Homola, and then you've got Simon Birch. Now the gap between Homola and Birch at the start of the lap was only 1.7 seconds, and Birch is fractionally faster within Sector 1 and Sector 2. So actually the two KTMs closing up is going to be the next battle.
Yeah, and yeah, it took 0.6 of a second out of him as Rossina gets past Borat there, and Borat will have to pit this lap. The pit window closes in less than a minute, so no more laps after this one, time-wise, for him to squeeze in. So he's going to have to dive into the pits, and hopefully the KTM behind doesn't follow him and get distracted, pops to the inside. Nice clean driving from both cars.
Through they come, as now for the pit lane comes Christophe Bure. This will be the last of the pit stoppers. You've got one or two still finishing a stop, but the last car in, having had a brief spell in the lead, is Christophe Bure. That's Philippe Pret. If I say he's on his way out, you know what I mean. He's leaving the pit lane. Yesterday's gearbox problem, hopefully a thing of the past, as he goes there past Oliver Freimuth's Lamborghini that's getting ready to rejoin. Fastest lap of the race, Simon Birch, number 80 KTM, the red and white Razzoon More Than Racing Milwaukee Tools car. Philippe Pret blasts back out again, so at the end of this next lap we'll have a proper idea of the order, not only overall but crucially in the AM class as well, where Philippe Pret has been the dominant driver.
Yeah, the gap between the KTMs now down to 0.8 of a second over the start line. Looks even tighter than that by the time they finish sector 1 here as well. And is that Birch going to be able to mount an attack to Racina, who'd have to clear the other KTM, of course, but Racina responds with a purple sector 1, fastest of anyone, as we see that final driver change going on.
So Christophe Bure gets out, and into the car gets a co-driver from last year, Pascal Gibon, who's another very experienced racer from things like the Le Mans 24 Hours to GT2 European Series. There, the KTMs, as Joe rightly says, getting a little bit nearer to one another. Simon Birch in the second of these cars, the man with the fastest lap of the race to his name right now. Onto the Mistral they come, and if they are going to get together and squabble, that's going to play right into the hands of Stefan Rosina. But remember, top 3 in the 2 classes have longer pit stops in the second race today.
Yeah, there's also a battle in the background there between the Maserati of Pret and the silver Mercedes of Montserrat as well. Not for class, but it will be for track position. Montserrat looking very quick out of the back straight chicane.
Bure gives way to Pascal Gibon. The track limit warnings have been reset for everybody, but straight up, now Simon Birch gets his first. So drivers have to be careful, as there you can see Philippe Pret getting onto the back now of Neil Montserrat. So Montserrat is from AM to Pro-Am overnight, and Philippe Pret, serving his pit stop, was the AM leader before the pit stops took place.
Montserrat's made that overtake since I saw it in the background, so it must have been either in Seine Le Bousset, and looks like he's got good pace. I do see that red Mercedes slotting into 6th place. There it is, going down pit lane. It's going to be tight. Is the Mercedes and Maserati battle that's just going to come into shot on your right-hand side any second now is going to be very tight. They're going to be up to speed, whereas that red Mercedes has still got to get all the way up from 50k to speed, and it does slot into 6th place. It
wasn't a great pit stop for number 115 Mercedes, but it is, as you say, well in contention now. So good stint towards the end of it. Certainly good lap times being set by Alberto De Martin. Neil Montserrat looking very quick straight into the car. So Stefan Rosina is now 1.8 seconds up on Matto Homola. Then you've got Simon Birch in 3rd place. Neil Montserrat 4th, so he stays ahead of the Pascal Gibon driven Mercedes. But the real loser out of all of that is Philippe Pret, isn't it? Because he was, what, briefly second, in fact briefly in the lead early on, dropped back into 3rd before the pit stops. But why has he lost so much time? The stop was a 2:28, which was one of the better ones.
Yeah, it must have just been an in and an out lap issue in terms of pace, and it's quite a hard metric to watch on the timing screen because it depends where they are in pit lane. You don't get a clean in and out, but it's something a lot of the teams now monitor and tell their drivers, we are looking at your in and out laps, because it is still the same amount of time lost on those laps. It's just a harder metric to get called out on essentially as a driver.
So out of senior they come, 22 minutes still to go. And a problem, possibly for Homola. He's way to the inside line. Round the outside goes Simon Birch. Homola tries to fight back. Now, was he offline because he had a wobble at senior, or was that a mechanical issue that he's just been able to drive round? He's back on his toes to defend, but it did seem to be a big loss of pace coming out of senior. But now he's definitely up for the fight.
Yeah, the car just looked slow. Didn't look like it had any drive to start with. Maybe he just had to flick a switch on and off and see if to get it to refire. But he's almost like coaxing him into a fight and then decided to punch him when he wasn't expecting it. And car looks fine now. That was an odd one. I didn't see from the outside dynamically rear the car really struggling there. Quite shallow into the last corner. He's going to struggle to get a good drive out of this last corner. Can Birch get the run on him?
Stefan Rosina did the fastest lap last time around. He comes through now in the race lead. That was a slightly slower lap, but he's clear now by 3 seconds from Homola and Birch. The gap between them is half a second as the KTMs run down towards turn 1. In 4th place across the line goes now Neil Montserrat, who did an absolute best first sector on that lap, and he is 8 seconds behind the KTMs, and he is lapping faster by nearly a full second than the KTM battle.
Yeah, it could be a battle that gets interesting towards the end of this race in 20 minutes time, but both KTMs now running okay. Slightly different lines taken through turn 4 into 5 there, and there is Montserrat, like you said, 8.2 seconds behind those KTMs, but took 9/10 of a second out on that last lap alone. Yes, they were battling, so maybe that's the biggest lap time delta we're going to see, but car looking good from Montserrat there.
And another personal best sector 1 from Neil Montserrat on this lap as the KTMs then accelerate up towards the chicane. Remember, Matto Homola is in for Laura Kraiheimer, who did the opening stint, Simon Birch for Thomas Anderson. They were pretty evenly matched with the first drivers. They're just as evenly matched with the second. And Matto Homola, having tried to fight for the race lead, now has to reset and try and take the points for second, keep at bay Thomas Anderson. So Stefan Rossina pulling away up front now, starting to build that lead and carrying on the good work of Bronek Formanek within the first stint.
Yeah, and Philip Pret's really dropped off the back here, isn't he? Just see him in shot there. I actually think the red Mercedes of Guillaume is catching too, so Pret is going to have to start looking in his mirror because that is for the AM-class lead.
Yeah, and his last lap was a 2 minutes 10, so that is a slowish lap, isn't it? It's okay, he's still in the lead of the class, maybe that's now the focus, but Philippe Pret's car, as we say, it lost time through that pit stop window, it's lost places overall, so maybe there is some issue. You're right, that certainly Pascal Gibon there is getting closer, although having said all of that, Pret now does a personal best in the second sector. I wonder whether we're looking at a recurrence of that gearbox problem.
Yeah, it could be just an issue where it's not shifting up, not shifting down, almost in a limp mode sometimes. There'd be a road car nature to the electronics in these GT2 cars, so a simple sensor issue sometimes can throw a load of problems the driver's way. But yeah, strange sort of pace going up, down, in, out. It just doesn't seem to be particularly metronomic.
Yeah, 2 minutes 10 last time is round about 3 seconds off the lead pace, and yet the next lap there is a personal best sector and then a slow third one where again he's being caught by Pascal Gibon. So both of them in fact were in the 2 minute 10s, but that's 2 slowish laps in a row from Philippe Pret. Although his best lap in fairness was only a 2:10.007, so maybe he's just settling into a rhythm now. The KTMs, in contrast, though, are certainly having a good fight. Simon Birch right there on the back of Matto Homola, and they're being caught still by the hard-charging Neil Montserrat, who is only 7 seconds behind them now, and he's got time in which to get onto the back of the 2 KTMs.
Yeah, 1.2 seconds taken out, so it wasn't the battling the issue for the KTMs in terms of Montserrat catching them, and they will start to get a message from the team saying, you are getting caught, you need to either overtake each other or start trying to work together, otherwise you're going to lose this podium position. As we watch that silver Mercedes now just coming out of the chicane, he'll be super pumped up. Montserrat, as soon as you can see the cars in front as a driver, gives you an extra impetus to really get the hammer down and go. Watch this Mercedes dive under braking, and then look at the KTMs squirming under braking there for Birch. These KTMs very fast, but they do look a little nervous at times.
Got another pit stopper. Petra Lisha in number 294 Mercedes has come in. That's not a mandatory stop, it's clearly a problem, so that's a shame for the newcomers to the series in that RTR Projects Mercedes. And RTR also running the KTM of Matto Homola here, which is certainly under attack from Simon Birch as they come now up towards the completion of lap number 17. Race leader Stefan Rossina escaping up the road. Homola, though, having to go really defensive and try and put that car anywhere Simon Birch thinks about attacking.
Yeah, and that's now starting to slow them. And you can see that car, Lisa, in the checking second on the front left corner. Maybe something up the suspension. Again, just going back to the drivers talking about how much pickup they're getting. They were saying that the pickup, and you can see now the marbles that have been generated just from this single race in those 17 laps. So that could be the issue.
Puncture, we understand, for Petra Lisha. So that's why the car has come in. It'll lose another lap, I fear, as the KTMs virtually as one now drop down towards turn 3. And a look at the inside from Simon Birch. Homola gives him room, and through goes Simon Birch. Good move. Didn't need a second invitation, did he? So, trading place for second position. I wonder whether Birch now can do anything about getting away and perhaps moving into closer range of the leading Lamborghini, or whether he's going to have to defend and therefore lose time against there, Stefan Rossina.
Yeah, we're going to see a bit of a drag race down the back straight there, but it was a great move from Birch, very clean, almost didn't see it coming, he just sent it, and yeah, Homola gave him enough space, but already Birch just trying to get out the slipstream, just moving left to right gently, just to not give the slipstream back to Homola, but Homola staying with him under braking lines, looking good from both cars, able to ride the curbs. These KTMs, like I've said, very stiff, but they still ride the curb well, the damping on them, very good to take that energy out.
But Stefan Rossina now in a class of his own, isn't he? Well clear of anybody else. Second, Simon Birch. There is Philippe Pret, still being caught by Pascal Gibon. And not only is this closing up then for 5th, but also for the AM lead. So Pascal Gibon has a real chance here of taking the class victory away from Philippe Pret, who looked so racy early on.
Yeah, that red Mercedes half a second a lap faster than that blue, white and orange Maserati in front. So this battle is on. Gap at 1.3 at the moment. I think at the moment Pret will be starting to look in his mirrors, and that's another issue as a driver. You start to look behind too much, you get distracted, you start adding too much to your mental load, and the capacity gets to breaking point, and that's where mistakes can start to creep in.
Petrolicia back into the race. Actually, it was a phantom puncture. He thought it was, apparently, but it wasn't. So maybe it was pickup.
Yeah.
And the sensation was that with something stuck to the tyre's gone down. Actually, when the team checked it, it wasn't a puncture after all. So they've sent him back out, but another lesson learned.
Yeah, that's what the GT World Challenge drivers were telling us about, weren't they? Mara Engel saying that the pickup can be so extreme. The vibration and the feeling, it feels like a puncture, and if the cars don't have a TPMS, a tyre pressure monitoring system, then the driver has to go on feel, and I can see why you can think that's a puncture.
So the leader, Stefan Rossina, the AM leader, Philippe Pret, 1.5 seconds up on Pascal Gibon. Last time, in fact, Gibon fractionally slower, just under 2/10 slower, so they're evenly matched, these two. 14 minutes of the race remain. Simon Birch, 7 seconds back now from Stefan Rossina. His last lap was a slower one, but that was with an overtake. Now he's got clear road ahead of him, and we'll see whether or not he can do anything about the leader. In the first sector, the answer is no, and that's a surprise, given that that's normally where the KTMs look good. That's Gibon, second in AM. Mercedes then up towards the right at turn 6. Go left at 7 onto the Mistral, and then the chicane turns 8 and 9. Philippe Pret, I would suspect here, is responding a little bit. So I think he's perhaps had the message from the team. Luca Piri's LP Racing team will say, right, the car behind you is your class rival. So if there is any more pace, now we need to find it. And actually, his last lap was only about 8 thousandths off his earlier best anyway. So Philippe Pret may have lost time relative to the overall leaders, but the car's pretty consistent now.
Yeah, and that was 10 laps ago he did his best lap. So the car has now found its happy place. Montserrat now really gaining, isn't he? This is for the final podium position. Hommler in front definitely looks like a target he could pick off towards the end of this race. I think Birch will be a bit too hard now for this Mercedes to catch, but the final podium position, look at the pace difference, 1.1, 1.4, 3 seconds on the last lap. So yeah, we're going to be within striking distance in the next half a lap.
So there is number 115, Neil Montserrat, who has dragged this Mercedes from his team that was started by Alberto De Martin up into 4th place, and he's going after Hommler. That gap was 3 seconds last time, and now as they come across the line, 7/10 of a second, and he's done another personal best lap. That was a 2:06.9. That's only a couple of tenths off the fastest lap of the race. So Neil Montserrat is an absolute man inspired right now.
Yeah, 6/10 quicker than anyone as well on the last lap. So even Rossina, who's 7.8 seconds in the lead of this race, Montserrat was quicker than him. So this gap now, where the strengths and weaknesses of the car. We say the KTM struggles on a straight line, but that's where the Mercedes excel. So I think this could be a relatively easy overtake somewhere down the Mistral straights.
So through they turn, and the Mercedes will have all that grunt in a straight line. Interesting race that for this car, because it started 3rd on the grid, dropped back early on, and then the Mercedes sort of caught a light, didn't they, mid-first stint. And now Neil Montserrat going for the podium within Pro-Am, lines up to have a go at Hommler. This is the perfect part of the racetrack for the Mercedes. Breezes by.
Yeah, can even go back to the racing line, and that's where BOP makes great racing. These cars have to generate their lap times in a different way. The Mercedes, that bit heavier, more cumbersome in the corner versus the KTM. So then the KTM has to concede straight line speed to make the lap times the same, and that's where pros and cons of cars come to the floor.
So up they come into Signe, and the lead gap, 7.8 seconds. Now, as you see, Pret versus Gibon, this is for the AM lead. That's up for grabs. And Montserrat yet has a chance of getting onto the back of Birch for 2nd place overall. When these cars started the lap, it was 11 tenths between Pret and Gibon. The Maserati still ahead, but little by little by little, that Mercedes AMG is getting closer, and now almost in a challenging position coming out of Signe.
Yeah, it took 4 tenths out of him in that middle sector alone. So, yeah, still 10 minutes remaining, so we're going to be somewhere like 4 laps at the end of this one to run. So there's going to be a chance, I think, for this Mercedes. Not going to see the speed delta difference that we just saw Mercedes versus KTM Mercedes and Maserati much more similar with their strengths and weaknesses around this lap. So it's going to still be a hard move to do, and Philip Pret is going to have his elbows out to keep the lead of this AM class. Absolutely right, because he's led AM all the way up to here. We're on lap number 20 for these cars, and we've only got 10 more minutes of the race to go. But Pret is under attack, isn't he now, as Pascal Gibon has a look at the inside. So last year it was Pret fighting a Mercedes, but it's a different team, different drivers this year fighting for honours. Up towards the timing line they will come. Last time 11 tenths, this time probably half of that, 7 tenths, so not a bad guess as they come over the timing line. Into turn 1, lap 21, they start. Third in the class, Oliver Freimuth, quite a long way back. One car that certainly has not been able to recover from that drive-through, number 7, Mauro Calamia, winner at Barcelona last year, still down in 7th place and just really unable to get onto terms with anybody else now. Yeah, after being so close to pole position as well yesterday, that car, they look strong at times, and just shows you a drive-through in a competitive field. Just it's 40 seconds that have gone forever unless you get a lucky safety car afterwards, which thus far they have not received. This is your fight for second place now. Neil Montserrat right onto the tail of Simon Birch. There was a second between them at the start of the lap, but that Mercedes is just getting better and better and better the lighter it gets on fuel. Yeah, still the fastest car on track. And look at the gap that was between those two KTMs. That's why I dismissed the chance of Montserrat. He goes to the outside round scene. Maybe you're going to get a load of pickup there. That could hurt him for a lap or two if he can't clean it up. But Birch already having to defend in Le Bousset. And again, this has been a monster drive from Montserrat. Has indeed, and the way that Hommler in 4th place has dropped back still makes me think there's something not quite right with that car. We saw it lose pace out of Le Bousset a few laps back, but look, it's almost disappeared out of shot. Doesn't look anything like as competitive as it did early on. Yeah, I agree with that. Even, again, the body language of the car didn't look particularly loaded in the background there coming out. As we go to the other battle, Pret looks like he's rallied his pace slightly, doesn't he? That gap, 7 tenths at the start of the lap, is either that or slightly more, in my opinion. Goes deep there, though, misses an apex. As we see the Mercedes dive under braking from Montserrat there. You can see the turning vanes underneath the car on the floor. So much aero on these road-going race cars, in inverted commas, because they are absolute monsters of a machine. Leaders go through then. Stefan Rossina now is 11 seconds to the good, and it's one car virtually for second place, isn't it? The KTM and the Mercedes absolutely nose to tail. Down they come into turn 1. Simon Birch is going to have to work very hard, I think, for another 8 minutes to keep this second position. Yeah, is it going to be sort of a rinse and repeat of how the Mercedes got past the previous KTM, and hopefully the team are on the radio to Birch saying the move was done on the Mistral, try and defend, try and make it hard for him. But I think it is going to be a difficult job to keep that Mercedes. He's got to get a good drive out this next right-hander, because the next time you lift off the throttle is the brake zone all the way down the Mistral. He's got, what, 2-3 car lengths. Let's watch as the drone pops up. You'll see that gap start to shrink, but at the moment, I think that gap's good enough where he might be able to block and defend into the next chicane. Here they come then, the blast down towards the chicane, turns 8 and 9. Simon Birch does try and cover off the inside line, but Neil Montserrat goes to the outside, trying to unsettle the KTM as much as anything. Simon Birch bounces over the curb, big bite of curb from the Mercedes. Neil Montserrat looking really ominous now. That car has the grunt coming off the chicane. Simon Birch defends, as he's entitled to do, to the outside line now. Goes Neil Montserrat up towards Scene, side by side. To go around the outside here, he's going to be brave, but he doesn't need to think about that because he's got the job done even before the corner. Yeah, he read that so well. He opened up turns 8 and 9 the previous chicane. Birch went defensive, then went deep. I actually think Birch needs to stop it on the apex. Birch coming back at the moment. Is he going to be able to send it to the inside, the second apex? He does. Montserrat gives him the space. They both run wide. What's Montserrat going to do here? Is he going to look to the outside? Cars weaving over that damp curb still, I think. But great move back from Birch. And he's got, what, 6 more minutes to hang on at the end of this lap. Not easy, is it, as they come then now from Galamont up towards the Virage de la Tour. And the KTM, well driven, Simon Birch, who was racing other things during the winter months, getting a bit more experience, coming back into GT2 this year, came out of the Danish national racing scene with success into the European Le Mans Series. Neil Montserrat, as we mentioned early on, experienced single-seater racer before he went off to run teams, and coming back into being a driver now, goes through, working out when to jink out of the draft. The outside line at turn 1, inside line for turn 2. Can't outbrake the KTM. Simon Birch doing a good job of defending. Yeah, is Montserrat going to get the cut back and the run into 3? Doesn't look like he's got enough speed to mount an attack at the end of this straight, but it's going to be a similar story on the Mistral. Birch probably will need a slight bit of defensive driving in the next 30 seconds, like he did last lap into the chicane, but he needs to try not to run in as deep and hurt his exit, because that's where Montserrat went, and it was a great move back. But I think next time that were to happen, I think Montserrat might cover it. Gap very similar, but look at Birch's car squiggling under. He's got 4 or 5 lengths at the moment. He's got a better gap than he did the lap before. And Montserrat actually didn't even seem to have the run on him, so I don't think Birch is going to have to defend at all into turns 8 and 9, the back straight chicane.
Or on lap 23, Stefan Rossina is now 13 seconds to the good, and part of that inflated gap is because here Simon Birch second is losing time by defending. 5 more minutes of the race to go. Out of the chicane they come. Interesting though this, Montserrat, having carved his way onto the back of Birch, is finding that KTM a tougher nut to crack.
Yeah, always following in the dirty air. You lose some of the aerodynamic grip. The car feels different. You can work the tyre harder because you're having to generate the grip more from mechanical grip than aerodynamic grip. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. There is still time, but we need to save up this move if we're Montserrat here, just to get one big send done rather than any little half looks, which will be very tempting as the clock ticks away.
So Simon Birch just gapping the Mercedes through the corners here. Let's try and work out when the leader comes by how many more laps. Probably 2, I think, for Stefan Rossina as the leading Lamborghini heads towards the end of lap 23. That's Philippe Pret, who is hanging on to the lead of AM. It's not been an easy race for him, but he is still there. And Pascal Gibon frustrated because he's got to about a second, but can't really get close enough to challenge.
Yeah, and again, it just ebbs and flows. It's a couple of tenths here, a couple of tenths there. Pret now starting to look a bit more defensive with his entry lines to these corners. Big, wide moment there from Gibon. He was too early on the throttle, I'd suggest, and the car didn't like it, and that gap now has grown maybe even up to a couple of seconds by the end of this lap.
Stefan Rossina still has that fastest lap of the race. Right, he's gone through. We're into the last 4 minutes of the race. So a couple of laps, bearing in mind that a flying lap at the minute is a 2 minutes 8 for Rossina. This is for second and third places. Now, was that a yellow flag being fluttered in front of the camera just briefly? Doesn't look as though there's been a drama down through that sequence of corners as Rossina pounds onto the Mistral. Really impressive stint this, got away from the KTMs, not put a foot wrong.
Yeah, got the move done, and then sort of just checked out once he got to the front, and the pace has been good, and there'll be just a certain level of management here. He'll be pushing hard, but you won't be going beyond the limits. You won't want any track limit warnings or anything like that.
Mauro Calamia, of whom we talked earlier, has done an absolute best last sector, so he's still charging in number 7. Maserati trying to close, in fact, on the Pret-Gibon battle for 5th and 6th overall. Leading cars onto the Mistral, and in the case of second and third, the chicane. There, Neil Montserrat now struggling, isn't he, to find that last couple of tenths to make a move against Simon Birch. He briefly got past him, of course, on this part of the circuit, 2 laps ago, but now he's really struggling again.
Yeah, just stuck at that 8 tenths a second, and because the KTM is a very aero-dependent car, it would be the worst car to follow because it's giving the most disruptive air off the back of its own car onto the front of yours, and that can sometimes really make it quite hard as a driver to know where to push and where not to. The low-speed corners where there's not as much aerodynamics, for example, here, turn 12, bend or corner, you'll be okay, but then suddenly through this fast 13, you'll just start to get the front of the car picking up and losing grip, and it can be very disconcerting as well as a feeling, as the car almost feels like it's floating.
Bit of a twitch again from Neil Montserrat as the race leader has just gone through to start the last lap. This is for second and third places in both the overall and the Pro-Am categorizations. So through now goes Simon Birch, through goes Neil Montserrat. Has Montserrat asked a bit much of the Pirellis in that charge through the field? Is he now unable to retaliate?
Yeah, potentially, and the harder you push, the higher the pressure go. And there is a sweet spot for the tyre pressure, and all the teams have their slight differences, but normally the Pirelli anywhere from 1.7 to 1.8 bar is a very good spot, and the harder you push, the higher they go. The compound starts to react differently and effectively give you less grip.
There you've got second and third then. Simon Birch looks as though he has pretty much now cleared that third place Neil Montserrat Mercedes, but of course we're heading to a part of the circuit that the Mercedes AMG really likes, that long fast straight. 12.6 seconds, nearly 13 seconds to the good is Stefan Rossina, so he's heading for another victory within GT2, but it'll be his first in Lamborghini, and coming up to put a lap on the type of car he used to race, the KTM, which is the Victor Marach car. That gets out of the way. Next up the road is Jordan Boisson's bright yellow Maserati. Rossina might catch that before the end, but it's been a mighty stint by the Slovakian.
Yeah, not a foot wrong, and yeah, they'll be looking forward to race 2 as well this afternoon. Obviously, it's good to win one race, but they do get that compensation time that you alluded to. So at the moment, if it was the same race, they would still win even with that compensation time, because they're going to win, I think, by maybe over 13 seconds by the end of this lap.
There is number 11 then, Stefan Rosina, who after that good first stint by Bronek Formanek brings it home and has also done the fastest lap. So it looks like a slam dunk, doesn't it? Started on pole, win the race, fastest lap, but they had to work pretty hard, certainly in that opening stint, and it's been a really lively race. The old adage of only taking 2 cars to make a motor race, well, we've had plenty of entertainment from the 11 that got through turn 1. Checkered flag then is going to be at the ready. Honours in the first GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli, race of the year go to Stefan Rosina and Bronek Formanek. A delighted Michelet Motorsport team. There is, with his woolly hat on, Bronek Formanek celebrating the win. Simon Birch hangs on to second place. That was a really spirited defence and a good drive. He lost second, he got it back. Neil Montserrat chases him home in third. Really good drive by him as well. So lots of people can reflect on this and feel really proud of what they've done, including Philippe Pret, who is still hanging on to the lead in AM and has got away, look, from Pascal Gibon, who is being reeled in by Mauro Calamia. Maybe Gibon's had a moment on this lap. Calamia has done a personal best. It took nearly 2 seconds, nearly a full second in that middle sector. Look, he's right on the back of the Mercedes up towards the line. Calamia pulls out to have a go. They're going to be virtually side by side as they get to the flag. Mercedes was ahead for 6th place overall, but that was 0.151 of a second. That
was a mega lap, wasn't it, from Calamia on the end? Took nearly 4 seconds out of it. So, yeah, if they hadn't had the drive-through from that start infringement, they could have been somewhere near the front as well, couldn't they?
Could indeed. So, Calamia will be higher placed on the grid for the second race, and a very happy Stefan Rosina bringing the car back to Parc Fermé. Bronek Formanek, as you would have spotted, a real character. And a real shame that we lost Anik Patel so early on in the race, having got his licence over the winter, looking forward to coming to race in Europe and giving the LP racing team a really hard task of repairing the car. And of course, it's a timetable that puts all the racing on the same day. Well, that's in some respects good, but if you have a problem, it can go against you.
Yeah, the only thing is, have they got a spare car? We see the sister car here from LP Racing. That could be the only way I see that car getting in this afternoon's race. If they had a spare one, they could swap to. That does need some paperwork doing and approval of the race director, so it's not as easy as just swapping a car.
No, exactly right. Well, there is a happy man, Philippe Pret. Gearbox problems in qualifying stopped him, and therefore he missed the second session. But think forward to race 2. So he now gets a longer pit stop because he's a winner. He gets an even longer pit stop because he's on his own, and he starts at the back. So race 2 is going to be a real challenge for him.
Yeah, and difficult, and it'll be different conditions as well. It's not going to get warm today, but it's going to warm up, and maybe even some rain. Look at that sky. You can see what's forming around us. Like I've said before, we're very close to the Mediterranean here, so the clouds get pushed in and hit this landfall, and then suddenly it can just be a rain shower out of nowhere.
So let's have a look at the result then of our first GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli race of the season. Bronek Formanek race winner with Stefan Rosina ahead of Thomas Anderson and Simon Birch. Alberto De Martin third with Neil Montserrat, and then 4th place going to Laura Kramer and Matta Homola. That car, bearing in mind it was fighting for the lead after the pit stops, nearly half a minute back, so there must have been a problem for Homola late race. Louis Pret 5th, winning AM from Christophe Bourret and Pascal Gibon. 7th after a drive-through, Roberto Pampanini and Mauro Calamia. Then Oliver Freimut, 8th from Patrick Charlet and Jordan Boisson. Thomas Miniberger and Victor Maratch finishing in 10th, and 11th going to Under Rokos and Petra Lisa. Anik Patel and Eddie Cheever out even before turn 1 after that damage in the Maserati. Big problems, big shame for Anik Patel, who can possibly get out for race 2, but I wouldn't be overly confident because it was a hard knock. Formanek and Rosina winning in Pro-Am. Philippe Pret, the AM winner. Some of the cars coming to the pit lane ready for the next race for GT4 European Series. About the GT2 drivers that are required for the podium, stopping at the requisite boards. And Stefan Rosina opens the door and starts to wriggle out of the car. A happy man there with his trademark woolly hat, long hair and big beard is Bronek Formanek. Great character, and coming into GT2 in the best possible way, winning first time out. All smiles then. And Stefan Rosina in his second career, if you like, having got himself up into international GT and one-make Porsche racing 2 decades or so ago, now coming back as a very quick businessman racer. He retired from the sport to go and build up his businesses, and stands with Bronek Formanek atop the Lamborghini celebrating a win. An outright win with respect to Brunet Formanek has not been a common occurrence. Class wins in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, yes, but there's nothing quite like an outright win. There with the spectacles, Thomas Anderson talking to Simon Birch about what a good job he did of withstanding all that pressure. Drivers getting their Pirelli caps ready for the interviews and for the podium. But some good racing, most definitely. And we understand that LP Racing are going to try to repair number 8 for race 2, but it's going to be a tough job, that's for sure. Let's hear, though, first from Stefan Rossina and Brunet Formanek with Alex Legui.
The winners of the overall and Pro-Am of the GT European Series, powered by Pirelli. Boys, congratulations. Let's start with you, Brunet. Oh, sorry. Let's keep it simple. Brilliant off the line. From pole to win, congratulations.
He's quite happy. It was a good stint for him, and he fought as much as he could. It was a bit wet, but he managed to bring it home in one piece. That's great.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And your turn. That didn't look easy out there.
No, it wasn't, because we lost some times in pits, but then I went on to have fun, and it was a good fight. I enjoyed that, and let's see, now we want to maximize also in race 2.
Yeah, how tough do you think this afternoon is going to be now that you've got an idea of the track conditions?
Very tough. I mean, I think it's going to be a little bit more dry, and then I expect Maseratis and KTMs to be closer, but we are ready.
Yeah, they didn't make it easy for you. Congratulations, well done, guys.
Talk about putting words in somebody's mouth there. So Stefan Rossina not just translating, but knowing what he was going to say. That's teamwork, when you know what your colleague is going to say. Read his mind.
Telepathic. To start with, I was like, oh, this is a very quick translation.
Yeah.
Like, unless that's one of the most efficient languages ever, then I'm not sure. But could have put literal words in his mouth, couldn't he? So at least they're good teammates. I would have said a lot worse.
Precisely so, right. So a win for the Michelet Motorsport Lamborghini team. Brunet Formanek and Stefan Rossina. First time together as a partnership, and Stefan Rossina racing this car in GT2 for the first time. It's an invitation class car. It gets in by invite of the sporting board. Let's hope that now it's going to do the full season. Drivers making their way to the podium. We'll have 2 podium ceremonies, of course. But we can have a word first with the AM victor. That's Philippe Pret, soloist, of course. He's with Alex.
And now with our AM winner, Philippe Pret. That did not look easy out there.
No, it wasn't easy, but I won at 10 kilometers from here. I know where's the track. We have a good car. Everything's fine.
Looked like there was a bit of a problem after your pit stop. You lost a bit of time.
No, it's because I have a penalty of 5 seconds because I'm single. Voilà, exactly.
Talk us through what your thoughts are for race 2 this afternoon.
Race 2, I start at the back because I didn't do it yesterday. I have a car problem that we fixed already, and we will see.
You can just go around them. That's fine. Thanks.
He starts at the back and has a longer stop, as we mentioned, because of being a solo driver. So it's purely the pit stop time that did for him, no issue with the car. But that said, Pascal Gimon did get close towards the end, and although the gap stretched on the last lap, Gimon had a moment. We got it down to just under a second at one point. So as Alex rightly says, it did not look easy for Philippe Pret.
No, and starting from last place after that gearbox issue as well for Philippe Pret there. That's going to be an interesting race this afternoon. Great slow-mo. You can see these cars, how stiff they are. Very little body roll. But then as they hit this exit curve, a lot of energy went in. And that was the exit curve that seemed to trigger the issue with the gearbox in qualifying, wasn't it? At this point yesterday, the gearbox seemed to say no thank you, and it coasted to a stop down the pit straight here.
Well, hopefully, LP will be able to do something to get number 8 into the race, even if they start from the pit lane and buy another sort of 10 minutes by not going to the grid. They'll still get into the race. Let's look at the highlights of race 1 of the season for the GT2 European Series. It began with a bang as, under braking, Anik Patel suddenly slewed sideways, damaged down to the Maserati, and that put it out of the race and brought out the safety car as Philippe Pret on the restart made his move for the lead, got the lead, and then ran wide. So back up front came Brunet Formanek into second, a good move by Laura Kreimer. Formanek relayed Stefan Rossina as the pit window opened. And it was Matto Hommeler's KTM that jumped on the pit stops into the lead, but a brave move by Rossina put him into the lead going into turn number 1. Then up into second place, Simon Birch. It was at this point that it looked as though Hommeler's KTM may have had a problem. It started to fade a little bit, it started to drop back through the pack and lose touch, not only with Birch, but also be reeled in by Neil Montserrat in the silver Mercedes, who was able to just breeze by on the Mistral straight up into third. Then by the end of the race, that KTM of Matto Hommeler was the best part of half a minute back. Neil Montserrat, though, did have a go for second place and was able to get ahead of the KTM of Simon Birch, but only briefly. 2 corners later, door opened. Birch back up the inside. Opportunistic move, and it worked. And once back ahead, he stayed there. Simon Birch taking second place, but it was a win outright and in Pro-Am for Bronek Formanek and Stefan Rossina in the opening GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli, Race of the Year. So the drivers then now making their way to the podium. And they've got another race to come, of course, a little bit later on. So quick turnaround for the teams. There's only really LP that's got much to worry about in terms of damage. The second race, 20-3, give or take, local time, with a day of 1 hour GT-style races here. GT4 and Lamborghini Super Trofeo also on the bill for the fans, as looking across fabulous landscape that we have around the Circuit Paul Ricard. And the drivers, I think, are now ready to be called forward onto the first of the 2 podiums. There's one for AM, there's one for Pro-Am. And as the teams toil, drivers can go and enjoy a bit of lunch and get set for the second race. GT4 teams getting themselves set here. And after a race win for a Lamborghini, we've got a sole Lamborghini race as well later in the day. But now the drivers do come forward for the podium ceremony. There for third place in Pro-Am, Neil Montserrat and Alberto De Martin. Second to the KTM drivers, Simon Birch and Thomas Anderson. Really good stint that by Simon Birch. And the race winners making their way onto the top step of the podium will be Bronek Formanek and Stefan Rossina. The Michelin Motorsport team represented. It's one of the happiest, most enthusiastic teams you can imagine, isn't it, that squad? So as the winning drivers make their way forward, all smiles from Bronek Formanek and Stefan Rossina. Top step of the podium for them at the end of a really, really good race. And Bronek Formanek, really good character, as I say, leaps up onto the top step of the podium. And a happy man, that is for sure. Well done then to Michelin Motorsport, to Bronek Formanek and to Stefan Rossina. And now, courtesy of Pirelli's Matteo Braga. And you can tell it's chilly because it's even a woolly hat today for Matteo Braga on the podium. He presents the trophies with the GT3 long distance race, 6 hours last night, plus GT2 and GT4. We were being told by Matteo Braga yesterday, something between 6,000 and 7,000 tyres here from Pirelli this weekend, and 50 members of staff to do all the fitting. It's a mammoth task. He gets the easy bit. He is able to come and present trophies, but there's an awful lot of personnel to oversee as well.
Yes, although Matteo is actually a very good tyre engineer as well. I've worked with him on Pirelli tests in the past, so he knows his product as well. And yeah, this is kind of Pirelli's fun weekend, all the hard work that goes behind the scenes in developing the tyre. It's a long, long process to make sure, A, it's safe, 2, it's fast, and then it's repeatable, reliable for the drivers. So Pirelli have done such a good job coming into this sport after it felt like a long time away, and now they're just dominating all the tyre manufacturing in GT racing at the moment and doing a very good job too. And
then add to that Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3. So yes, it had an amazing resurgence, hasn't it? As the drivers on the podium then celebrate in style. And that's the Pro-Am podium done. Then we'll turn our attention to the AMs. But as far as championship situation is concerned, you basically take the order. That is the championship after just the one round. It'll be interesting come the end of the day to see how things pan out once you've got the points out of 2 races. And I'm sure race 2 is going to have a rather different feel to it. So on a chilly Sunday morning at Paul Ricard, the champagne will be nicely chilled, that's for sure, for the drivers on the podium. And for Oliver Freimut, third in AM, beckons. For Pascal Gibon and Christophe Bourret, second in AM. They'll be on the podium in a few moments. And then the top step of AM will go the way of Philippe Pret. So Oliver Freimut steps forward, rather languidly, it must be said, onto the podium for third place. Another driver moving from Lamborghini Super Trofeo, he's been racing for the last few seasons. There, Pascal Gibon and Christophe Bourret. Sort of rather hesitantly say well done. And then Philippe Pret for the top step of the podium. LP Racing represented there as well. So solo driver Philippe Pret leaps up. He looks a bit happier, doesn't he? The others were slightly more low-key. But well done to Philippe Pret.
Yeah, see the pipework hanging out. It's actually a driver cool suit, so they can plug that in that pumps cool liquid around the body. So a really nice thing to have as a driver, even in cold ambience. You can never be too cold in a race car. He also gets double the champagne, doesn't he? That's a plus.
Yes. So congratulations to Philippe Pret, victorious within the AM class. The trophies in a moment to be presented by Mateo Braga once again. Oliver Frymouth there taking third place. Mateo Braga, the motorsport head from Pirelli. There you have for second spot the two trophies. Pascal Gibon, Christophe Bourret, stalwarts now in GT2, back for another season, having raced together in GT4. And LP Racing gets the team's trophy and victory for Philippe Pret. So something to celebrate for the team, even though one of the Maseratis that the squad operates has got quite a bit of damage. The other car coming home victorious. So a top job done by Philippe Pret, scoring victory in the AM class. He's got to do it from the back of the grid with a longer pit stop for that win in the second race. It's going to be tough, but an interesting race, that's for sure, when we have another hour of GT2 action to come later on in the day. And there, Alberto De Martin and Neil Montserrat receiving further awards, and Philippe Pret, if he does take both bottles of champagne, yes he will, he's not going to spray, he's going to keep for later on in the day. So GT2 back on track this afternoon. 20 to 3 we will have the second race on track. Join us for what should be another lively race later on in the day.